I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, September the 14th. Happy birthday to my youngest daughter, Channing, turns 15 today. Brought to you in part by Vitalix, manufacturer of protein tubs for now 30 years. Try their new feedlot starter tub. It's recommended for cattle coming into the yard the first 21 days after arrival. Decreases pull rates and stress. Global warming, that's what the liberals think are causing all these fires out west and all over the western United States for that matter. And I tell you what, those folks just don't know anything about agriculture or basically common sense. If you see that, what's causing all these fires? They say global warming is causing it, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there's not something to global warming. I mean, yeah, it's proven the earth is definitely warmer than it was several years ago, but it's kind of a cyclical type deal. And the last time we went through this cycle, there weren't any humans on this planet, but they've kind of found that out. Fires are a natural phenomenon, but we can manage those fires now. We've got a way to do it. And if you talk to the folks that live out that way, they've known this phrase for a long time. You log it, you graze it, or you watch it burn. Okay, you've got all this fuel in here, underbrush and things that are in that the woods up in that country and out in the woodlands, and you need a way to thin it out. Well, it's too dense to get in there. Find a way to get in there and graze that down and get that fuel down, and you can do that through grazing of livestock, cattle and sheep and goats. I tell you what, you know, I've seen guys clean up a lot of country with goats. And I know this is a cattle report, but I've spent a lot of time actually grading goats and talking to goat producers and things like that when I was in Missouri there as a federal state supervisor of the market program there. And I've watched it, and I've learned that you turn goats into places and you can run them in pretty rough country right ahead of cattle. They want the noxious stuff. That's what they crave. And it's just a natural way to clean that country up, and you ought to use it in a rotational grazing program in front of your cattle. The goats won't compete with the cattle until they run out of the stuff that they want. So in essence, they clean all that junk up and just leave the good grass for the cattle, what they want to eat. But get in there and clean that up. It's ridiculous. And then they've got so many restrictions on the logging industry now. They need to clean that up too. You just let those forests sit there forever and they get all that underbrush and they're just a tinderbox just waiting to take off. I mean, there were fires all through the country before people were there too. And if you guys, you conservationists, are so worried about air quality and global warming and all that shit, what about all the smoke? You know, maybe it would pay to go in there and ease the restrictions on the logging and make it easier for people to get some grazing rights on some of this country, even if it is in part of that dense area. But, you know, it'd be a lot better off, the state of California and Oregon too, especially on that western side, if they would pay people to come in there and graze that out. I tell you what, guys would kind of learn how to be cowboys or get dogs or whatever they need to do to go into the woods if they were paying them to clear that underbrush out of there and all that fuel out from under those forests. But then also, you know, it's hard to feel sorry for people when they go back into the woods 20 miles and build a house right amongst the trees. You know, chances are it's going to happen. You build your house right next to a cliff, and sometimes your house falls off the cliff. You build your house down on the ocean, and it could be a big storm or hurricane come through there and knock it off. You know, you build your house in the forest, and chances are it might burn sometime or another. I'm not trying to be not thinking about those people, but you know, it's just you got to use your head about all this stuff. But this has been really, really bad. I tell you what, like 3 million acres out there in California alone. It's unbelievable. I was talking to a friend of mine that lives in eastern Oregon, a long ways from where the worst of the fires are, and was telling me over the weekend he was down to a quarter-mile visibility, and that's pretty tough. I've talked to some other people who live out on the West Coast, and they were telling me that they've known several people that's lost many cattle out there in that country, and you hate to hear that. I tell you what, that just that takes the steam out of you. But it's not just along the West Coast there. There's plenty of fires burning in Colorado. There's plenty of fires burning in Montana. Talking to a guy and heard that in eastern Montana, told me of a couple of 3 different herds of cattle that got burned up there. And boy, you hate to hear that, but this weather has been so crazy this year that we had places that normally don't get any moisture that were wet, and places that that usually do get some moisture, and they were dry, and then we were good at some points of the year, and then it just cut completely off. And it was just kind of like what we had there a little over a week ago when we had that cold snap come in there. Denver was sitting there way up in the 90s, and then just 2 days later they've got significant amounts of snow, winter storm warnings, and temperatures down in the 30s. And it was about that big a shock in the southern plains too. And you talk about being tough on calves that you're trying to get weaned, or if you bought some shipped in calves and had some new arrivals, whoa, that would be pretty tough on you too. But the early weather snap this past week took a toll on your demand, especially for calves. And even more so on your unweaned calves, which you saw people bringing some of those in due to the dry conditions. They needed to get them off the cow and get them moved, and then just couldn't get people excited about buying calves whenever you got big temperature swings like that. And then it was kind of cold and rainy, not a lot of moisture, but kind of cold and rainy in the southern plains there for a couple of days early last week, and that was a big deal. But what else did we see? We saw the crop report come out there late in the week last week. USDA dropped the yield estimates on both corn and beans pretty significantly, but your experts were kind of expecting that. We figure most of that's already been figured into the market, so that hadn't been a big deal. We saw on Thursday the report come out about that wild boar in Germany that had the African swine fever, and that just turned the futures market on its ear. And we saw big jumps there early. They didn't close that much higher, but both Thursday and Friday we saw fairly significant gains. The gains were bigger, like I said, during the trading session, but then the close wasn't that much higher. But that's going to be something to watch. I tell you what, Germany was a significant supplier of pork to China. And so that's been completely shut off now because they've got a positive swine there. And even though it was a wild boar, and they had been taking a lot of safeguards with electric fence and doing all kinds of things to try to keep that disease out of their country. But it was confirmed on late in the week there that they did have one. And so that's going to make, the Asia, they've already been having a tough time trying to keep up with their protein levels because that African swine fever swept through China there and significantly dropped their herds, and so they don't have near the product there. They've pretty much already cleaned up everybody else, and even though we're not very happy with China and because of the COVID deal, and we're blaming them because that's where it started, and they're not very happy with us. They're having to get some fairly significant shipments of protein and grains and all kinds of ag products sent directly to them, and we definitely need them because they've got a lot of hungry mouths to feed over there. But let's talk about the board for last week. Your October live cattle futures, of course, Monday was a holiday. Tuesday up 132. That was a big jump there, and then they took most of it back. Wednesday was down $1.07. Thursdays when we got the news about the ASF on your German wild boar there, closed up 40 cents is all. It was up a lot more than that earlier, but Friday live cattle contracts up 42 cents to end the week at 105.52, up $1.07 for the week. December ended the week at 109.90, up $1.43. September feeder cattle, Monday was the holiday. Tuesday up $1.30 on feeder cattle. Wednesday down just 55, so was able to keep most of that. Thursday up 77 and Friday up 82. And your chart watchers, the technical prognosticators, were looking for that, and it had absolutely nothing to do with anything fundamental, even the wild boar or anything. But they were looking for that. We had a pretty strong indicator that the market was going to bounce back some on feeder cattle. When they're all looking at the board the same way and trading that way, you're going to see it. But September feeder cattle contracts ended the week at $140 even. That was up $2.35. October ended the week at $140.57, up $2.07. Your fat cattle through Thursday of last week had only sold 53,300 head, and that's because we saw gains on your futures market mid to late week, and your packers were buying fat cattle cheaper early in the week. Why your sellers want to take less money early in the week? I'll never understand that. Because they've got that packer psychology. They're always telling these guys, we don't need any cattle. We got all the cattle we need. We don't even need any for the whole month of September. And then they sell them some, and then they take them the very next week, or maybe even at the tail end of that week, every time. And they just never learn. But I tell you what, they had everybody snow jobbed into thinking they didn't need any cattle. And we come off of the holiday week, which they had been kind of using that holiday both the week before because they didn't have much of a Saturday kill, and then Monday being shut down, they were using that as kind of a bargaining stump there. But you had your cattle sellers eager to sell cattle lower on Tuesday early in the week. Then we saw a trade on Wednesday, but then when the board responded positively late in the week, then your packers didn't really want to give that buck back, and so we didn't see much trade. So we're not going to have a whole lot of cash trade. They did have a little bit more on Friday, and I'll tell you about that. But we'll get the total week's roundup here on our next visit, and we'll find out how many we did actually sell cash last week. But live sales of steers and heifers through Thursday, $1 to $1.05, mostly 101 to 103. Your weighted average through Thursday was $100.86 on live steers. That was about $2.50 cheaper than what we'd seen on your weighted average at the same time the previous week. But basically $1 to $2, mostly $2 lower. Your weighted average might be a little more than that, but we saw a lot of trade at 101 early first half of the week, and then 102 the second half of the week. So it was we did see some gains, but we didn't get as much of that late trade as we did that Wednesday trade. Your dress sales, steers and heifers, $2 to $4 lower late there. 159 to 164 was your price spread on dress sales. Your dress steers weighted average through Thursday was $160.56, and that was about $2.50 cheaper on your weighted average. But Friday we saw a little bit more trade. About 1,200 head confirmed in Iowa, likely more than that by the time they get them all rounded up. The live sales at 103 and 161, and that premium that the South was carrying to the North only lasted about 1 week, and we've gone right back to where there's a little more demand in the North now. Nebraska, 3,300 head there. Live sales at 102 in Nebraska on Friday, and 160 to 161 on your dress sales. Kansas didn't see anything confirmed on Friday, but likely there was a few deals that they'll get cleaned up by the time they wrap it all up here on Monday morning. But Texas had 2,200 head of cash sales on Friday, all at 102. Box beef cutout values were quite a bit lower last week, and that's just seasonally. It's time for those to start going down. That's another reason your packers are getting harder to trade with, and they're really playing hardball. They're not worried about what people think of them. They're sure not worried about any kind of investigation. That doesn't scare them at all. And they're not worried about the NCBA overlooking their cash sales to see whether it's going to relate to a transparent market. They have no interest in that and not worried about it because they know there's no teeth to any of the talk that's going on. But choice cuts, your weighted average on all of last week's sales, 222.12 on choice. That was down $5.27 compared to your weighted average from the previous week's volume. Selects, all of last week's select sales, 207.60 on the weighted average, down $5.54. But pretty good movement at the lower levels of 677 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Your slaughter, it's been hard to really compare it because we didn't have our holiday Mondays match up. We had it last week, of course, was a holiday week, but a year ago it wasn't. But that 574,000 that we had last week with the Monday holiday was 3,000 better than last year's holiday week, and most of it because we had a big Saturday. This past Saturday was pretty big. 95,000 head estimated were harvested this last Saturday. Let's look at what else is going on. I want to talk about our California, our western contingent of DV auction. We've got several sales coming up that the California guys have rounded up and are working. We've got sales coming up. It's getting to be a fall bull sale time, and we've got several big horse sales coming up. But Western Video Market is having another big video, and you can watch that on dvauction.com. View and bid right there. It's going to be based kind of in Ogallala, Nebraska. Dwayne Mays kind of hosts that sale. They always have one there. Actually going to be held at the Haythorn Ranch there outside of Ogallala. They've got 15,000 head of cattle consigned and 5,000 head of lambs. There'll be some of the very, very best green grass yearlings that are still left, and some of the very last ones. If you guys want them, there'll be program cattle on there. So don't miss a Western Video Market sale. And then that's going to be held on Tuesday this week. So be sure and watch that sale and get on there and bid. And there'll be some of the most desirable yearling feeder cattle out there and some of the fanciest calves you can get your hands on. Also, they've got out in California, Greg Schaefer, a buddy of mine, Mid-Valley Bull Sale in Oakdale, California. That's going to be on Friday. That's going to be on dvauction.com. So don't miss that. And then on Saturday, they're going over to Prescott, Arizona. They've got the Legacy Ranch Horse Sale, and that's going to be on DV Auction on Saturday, so don't miss that. Let's talk about your feeder cattle markets. Your real-time index on DV Auction ended the week last week at 140.83 based on an 800-pound steer. That's cash auction markets right there. That was up $2.49 from the end of the previous week. A lot of that gain, or not a lot of it, but a significant amount of the rise on there came from your Monday Labor Day sales. The big one they had in Torrington, the one they had in Russell, Iowa. That's a 7-day moving average, and there's a lot of cattle in there, but when you sell that many cattle, $10 higher than anywhere else, and there's not a lot of big high volume sales on Monday due to the holiday, it's going to significantly change that index, and it does the same thing to the CME cash feeder cattle index. If you notice, they're very, very close right now. But Joplin Regional Stockyards, they've got 6,000 on hand here for Monday. They'll start pretty early. They'll be on big bunches by 7:30, 8 o'clock for sure. View and bid that sale on DV Auction. And then Thursday, they're going to have a primetime video, but it's going to be there at the barn at Joplin Regional Stockyards. Be on Thursday at 1 o'clock p.m. They'll kick that off, and they've got several good lots of feeder cattle to sell on the primetime video, so don't miss that. Oklahoma National Stockyards expecting 9,000 head for their Monday sale. Let's talk about your trends for last week, ending the week with cash feeders in your sale barns steady to mostly $2 to $3 higher. And that's where they were tested, and it was mostly late because most of your Monday sales were not open, so we didn't really get a good start on what our trend was going to be. But by the time we got into some of those best tested sales late in the week, you could tell steady to mostly $2 to $3 higher. Calves were very uneven. That was mostly due to the weather changes. It was cold early in the week and then got hot again late in the week, and guys would just rather to have those temperatures a little more constant, and to buy those balling calves, they'd really like to get a hard freeze on everything, but that's likely not to happen for a while in the southern plains. But look at some of your big sales late in the week last week. Bluegrass Stockyards, Richmond, Kentucky. Jim Dawson Company there. I tell you what, they were actually last month's Zach Tran Market of the Month, and they're just so impressive. Look at all these strings of cattle that they sold there at Bluegrass Stockyards in Richmond, Kentucky. That was on Friday. There's all of them are very impressive. The ones that were most impressive to me was that load of 930-pound steers at 139 in Kentucky, guys. 201 head of 824-pound steers bring 145.20. How about St. On, South Dakota? My buddy Justin Tupper there, he had a hell of a sale on Friday. And you look at all these, my favorites is the 76 head of 720-pound steers bring 154.75. Had 67 head of 811-pound steers bring 146.75. And then a big string of big steers, 77 head, 990-pound steers bring 133.50 with your fat cattle market at 102. Burwell Livestock Market, Burwell, Nebraska on Friday. They had one of their big specials too. 55 head of 704-pound steers bring 158. 130 head of 868-pound steers bring 147. And 424 head of 941-pound steers through the ring, Burwell, Nebraska, bring 144.25. That's your feeder flash for Monday.